Now, we're talking about killing stuff, and I'll introduce you to Stephen. Now, Stephen is the proprietor, owner of an organisation called Kill the Rabbit, which is pretty clear about what it does. And I introduce him to you this afternoon. Welcome to the show, Stephen. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Michael. How are you?
Kill the Rabbit. I met you, I think, in the car yard. It wasn't the car yard. It was in the just outside Fresh Choice one day. And you were inside, as I remember, getting whatever you were getting. And I was attracted instantly to your Kill the Rabbit van because I noticed 3 stoats in there. Tell me about that.
3 ferrets.
3 ferrets, not stoats. Okay. What's the difference, by the way, between a stoat and a ferret?
Stoats, they'll kill anything that they can get to, whereas ferrets, rabbits. That's what they live on, is rabbits.
Ah.
And ferrets can't really climb, whereas stoats can climb very well.
What's the difference in size between a ferret and a stoat?
A stoat would only be maybe a quarter of the size of a ferret.
Right.
And then in between the two, you've got weasels, which are on the increase in Central Otago.
Oh, really? Now, they were all introduced originally, ironically, weren't they, to catch the rabbit? Was that the idea?
Yep, exactly.
Right, now, but you are Kill the Rabbit, so you're a commercial enterprise, Kill the Rabbit. Now, how does somebody get in contact with you to start with? Have you got a website or something?
Yeah, got a website. You just put Otago and rabbits in, and normally the website comes up at the top.
Okay, all right. So if you want... Now, the reason why Kill the Rabbits exists is because there is... the rabbits, I think, are the number 1 pests in Otago, Southland. They were introduced... I was reading the history of them. They were introduced, I think, deliberately in the 1850s or 1860s by the Southland Acclimatisation Society or whatever it was at the time. And they headed north with no natural predators and have been a feature ever since of the Central Otago region, driven off generations of farmers from farming from their destructive aims and still do. Why do we need you?
Kill the rabbits.
Right. And how do you do that?
There was 6 or 7 rabbits released at Sandy Point down in Invercargill, and they estimate within 15 years there was 150 million.
Good grief. Do they commit incest, rabbits?
Well, that's more than I could actually tell you.
Okay, no, it's just, I mean, you'd think they'd be inbred, but there you go.
Well, to a point. I mean, if there was only 6 released to a point, there's got to be inbreeding, doesn't there?
Yeah. John's just sent me, says, ferrets killed 7 of my hens last week here in Canterbury. So they're obviously yeah?
The stupid part is they kill hens and don't eat them. I don't know what that's all about.
Oh, really?
They just go in, kill the hens and bugger off.
Right.
It's weird.
But they eat the rabbits.
Oh, yes, definitely. They kill sort of a rabbit, depending on the time of the year. Well, I mean, in summer, they've got to kill 1 a day sort of thing because it's so warm the meat just goes rotten. In winter, they kill 2 or 3 a week.
Right. Now, so the ferrets were brought in, and the stoats and the weasels, presumably, once the rabbits got out of control. And ironically, the stoats in particular went, bugger the rabbits, there's a lot of other good stuff to eat here, and became just as much of a problem. The ferrets, as you've explained, they tend to go mostly, if they leave the hens alone, for the rabbits. What other methods do you employ, Stephen, to kill rabbits?
Night shooting, dogs, trapping, poison, all sorts of things.
And what sort of poison do you use?
I try really hard not to use it because, to me, if you're using poison, you've failed miserably at your management plan with pest control.
Right.
But we use a bit of pindone here and there.
Right, okay. So night shooting, how effective is that?
Very. But with all the houses going in everywhere around central Otago, it's getting harder and harder to do it because there's just so many houses.
Right, so are you suggesting that rabbits are taking over, peri-urban areas?
Yeah. You get the little 10-acre blocks and all that, and there's houses all around. It's very, very tricky to shoot.
Right. Now,
and there's a chance of something going wrong, so you sort of shy away from it.
So you're shooting them, with a 22 or a shotgun or what?
17 HMR and 223.
And in a night, just an average night, how many would you shoot in a night shoot?
It varies dramatically depending on how well under control the block is. We might shoot 10 or we might shoot 200.
200?
Our record is 827 in one night, and it was a short night.
Good grief.
And that was at Lowburn.
At Lowburn, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's sort of inland a bit from Alexandra, isn't it?
Yeah, just up the road from, 5k's from Cromwell?
Oh, sorry, I'm completely wrong. No, right, Lowburn that way, so that's on the way from Cromwell to Wanaka.
Yep, that's the one.
Right, sorry, yeah, got it wrong. Okay, but the other thing that strikes me about night shooting, although it's meant to be extremely effective, and I know it's used by a number of rabbit controllers and pest agents, is how come the rabbit doesn't know that you're out there? Like if I was watching all my mates getting popped off by you, particularly if there's that sort of genocide carrying on, I think I'd be down the burrow and staying there, but they don't?
We're now using thermals, which has changed the game dramatically because there's no light flicking around. Yeah, okay, there's a wee bit of noise from the vehicle, but they don't really associate that if they can't see it, if that makes sense.
Right.
And before the advent of thermals, we used spotlight, and I'd get a block down, go and do a night shoot, we might get 25, 35, whatever, but every time we were there, we'd get that. Then, when we got the thermal, our numbers actually went up for 2 or 3 trips, and then they really dropped to, you might get 5 for the night. That's how much the thermal has changed the game.
What are thermals?
Oh, well, a very expensive scope.
Right. And they focus on the body heat.
Yeah, it's just all heat related. And you've got to be careful with them. Certain things are in neutral heat and you can't actually see them.
Such as?
So, yeah. Fences and things like that at times.
All right. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Or if you're out in the paddock and there's a lot of rocks in it, it's quite tricky because the rocks soak the heat in, and if you don't know what you're doing, all of a sudden you're shooting rocks instead of rabbits.
That would be a bit unfortunate. Okay, so you're shooting, you use a bit of pindone, you use the ferrets. How do you use the ferrets? In what way?
If the dogs chase a rabbit down a hole or indicate a hole, we'll put a ferret in there.
And what happens? Do they come out the other side and you shoot them, or does the ferret just simply catch them?
The ferret kills some underground, and the rest come out, and the dogs clean them up. Right.
Okay. Gosh, it'd be quite fascinating to follow you around on a particular night or afternoon while you're doing this. What are the seasons, please? Because that's the other thing. I'm in Central Otago at the moment. Oh God, I'm seeing a lot of rabbits just in my area at the moment. I live around the Cromwell Golf Course area, and man, there's a lot of rather well-fed rabbits running around here. Rules are that you have to kill your own because the Otago Regional Council doesn't kill any. Who employs you to do that?
Just private landholders.
Right. What, they're mostly agriculture? Yeah.
No, we've got a couple of stations that we do, but we're doing more because we're Central Otago, there's less and less stations around, so we're doing more and more sort of lifestyle to residential.
And what about in the peri-urban areas, like the lifestyle blocks and things like that? Do people engage you or not?
Oh, yes, we're all over the place.
So if I am in a peri-urban area, if I've got my lifestyle block on the edge of a built-up urban area, and you say I can't shoot them, is that when you use Pindone?
You've got to be very careful there because there's a lot of dogs around. Well, I actually tell people your very first thing you need to do is get a rabbit-proof fence in.
Yeah.
Especially if you're one of the poor people that has some government department for a neighbour. I pity you.
You're talking about the Department of Conservation, I take it.
And LINs and regional councils and district councils, the whole lot. I pity anyone with them for a neighbour.
So your argument is that even though all of these organisations that are meant to be dedicated to pest eradication and are rating you for it or taxing you for it, they are in actual fact hypocrites because they are not controlling their own blocks for rabbits and other pests, yeah?
Correct. Doc will, after a few years of a lot of people pestering them, they'll go in and do a poison somewhere. Not all the time, but sometimes they'll go in and do a poison, and then they won't do anything until the next time everyone goes and pesters hell out of them.
Yes.
In the meantime, the rabbits are breed up and they've spread out into all the neighbours' places.
Yes, and what people won't be instantly aware of is that they can legally exempt themselves because government departments are not contained or caught by the same legislation as everybody else, are they?
Maybe you can explain that to me, how they get away with that, because that seems bizarre to me.
Oh, it's wrong. Listen, it's absolutely wrong. And but the central government has been exempting all of its agencies all throughout New Zealand, from taking or meeting their pest obligations. The second one, mate, is they don't pay rates on their own land. So the government exempts itself from paying rates on any property that it owns as well.
So if it's not paying rates, then it's got plenty of money to go and do some bloody pest control.
You would think. Yeah.
You would. And
Doc is bad. Who else is bad? District councils, regional councils.
LINs.
So LINs is, just to explain to people, is Land Information New Zealand. What are they? Are they the old Department of Lands, are they?
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
I think they probably are.
I actually talked to one of the managers there, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, about this rabbit problem around part of Dunstan. And he's like, oh, have we got a problem there? And that he didn't know was shocking, because at the end of the day, the regional council should have put a notice on them about it. Then they would have known and they wouldn't have that excuse not to do something.
Mm.
So, yeah. It seems that all the government departments are having a circle jerk while they're plaiting bloody daffodils into each other's hair, sipping rose petal and cinnamon tea, instead of actually doing something.
Yes. And understandably, mind you, if they didn't do that, then you wouldn't have a job. So, I guess there is that.
The flip side of it is it's actually costing those ratepayers a lot more. If you've got a group and everyone is doing their part, we haven't got to go there as much. So it's costing everyone less money. But if you've got one that's not doing anything, we've got to go to the neighbours a lot more.
Yeah. And
so,
no, that's fair enough too. Now,
crazy.
we used to have rabbit boards. They were a part of rural New Zealand throughout the whole of New Zealand, from Northland all the way to Southland. They got rid of those largely in the government reorganisation of 1989. Do you think that would be good to have something back, some board that was simply responsible for exterminating pests, whether they be wallabies, rabbits, anything feral like that?
Absolutely. How it would be done, I really don't know. But I know a few old guys that were in the old boards, and they used to tell me the numbers they'd get. And if they got any more than 20 or 30, their boss was up them going, what the hell's going on? And this is for a night shooting in Ida Valley. So now you go over there and shoot 200 or 300 in a night.
Mm.
So the boards back then worked.
Mm.
And then the regional councils took over, and a lot of those staff left, and it went to shit.
Well, and regional councils said this is not our responsibility anymore and tried to put it on the individual landowner instead, but didn't actually monitor whether or not the landowner was doing their job or not.
Correct.
And then, but the next thing was the introduction of Khaleesi virus, and that was brought in illegally by a whole series of Central Otago farmers who had just had enough. Is that still killing rabbits, or are they now largely immune to those sorts of viruses?
There was, on the original virus, I can't remember the exact number, I think there was like 5% resistant when it first came in. But of course that would have, over time, become a higher percentage because that's how genetics works. The virus is still around. At times you'll go through and you go, oh, there should be more rabbits in this here, and there's not. So obviously conditions are right and there's a bit of virus gone through. But there is definitely resistance, much more resistance to it now. So you just sort of treat it as a free tool, and when it happens, and just keep killing. Where's he gone? Where is he gone?
Hey, Stephen, I forgot to switch my mic on. Stephen, just tell me, two questions, final questions. The first one is, are rabbits worse now in the Otago, Central Otago region where you kill, South Canterbury region, than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago?
There's less around at the moment than there was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more around than what there was 15 years, 20 years ago.
Why do you say that there were less than 2 or 3 years ago? Is somebody doing something right, or is it because people like you are commercially employed to kill them?
There's a bit of everything going on, plus a bit of virus. It sort of all helps.
Right.
There is definitely a lot more people doing control work now, and it is having an effect.
Right. And finally, what are the best times for rabbits to breed? So I'm thinking we're living in much more benign in terms of weather. I mean, not at the moment with this valley fog, but what I mean by is that it's warmer generally than it has been in the past. We're not getting those really, really cold central Otagos that would go back 20, 30, 40 years over. It's a bit more warmer throughout the region. Is that an encouragement for rabbits to breed more, or does it make no difference, the temperature? They just go for it anyhow?
Well, the breeding season has started. I gutted a few last week and all the does were pregnant. From like 1 to 2 weeks pregnant, which is all just on schedule.
Yeah.
Pregnant in the middle of June, in the ground middle of July, and we always get our first young rabbits first week of August. So it's all on schedule.
And the other, tomorrow we're talking about something completely different, which is feral cats, actually, and the feral cat competition that's got so many people upset up in North Canterbury. Have you noticed in your wanderings a rise of feral cats in your areas as well?
They've always been around. There's possibly more around. The dogs cleaned up a couple just 2 weeks ago at home. So they're around.
But they're not.
Some farmers, some farmers want them shot, some want them left. Same goes with ferrets, because at the end of the day they kill rabbits. The problem with cats is they kill a few other things as well.
Okay. Stephen, thank you very much for talking to me this morning or this afternoon. I much appreciate it. Kill the rabbit. Is it .co.nz?
No, it's kill that rabbit.
Kill that rabbit. Right.
.me.
.me.
Yep.
Kill that rabbit.me. And if you want to engage Stephen and his services, he's available. Very effective. Thanks for joining us this afternoon, mate. You have a very good day.
You too.
Okay. All right. Kill that rabbit.me. .me.